All right. Hey, I'm here with Cristi Creegan, and she has agreed to have a little career chat with me. So welcome, Cristi. I'm going to let you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what your current career is, what your pathway has been like to get to this point, everything along the way, just, the whole history of your life. No.
Okay, well, I'll try to keep it relevant. Thank you, Nicole, for asking me to do this. So I'm Cristi Creegan. I am currently the Mayor Pro Tem for the City of South Lake Tahoe. I was elected to the South Lake Tahoe City Council in November of 2020. And I had never run for anything relevant before. I haven't run for anything since I was in second grade. I ran to be the treasurer of my elementary school. However, I was in second grade and a sixth grader won, which makes perfect sense because I was way too young, and who would elect a second grader? Plus, I'm really bad at math, so I'm totally surprised that I even ever ran for that. My career path getting to this point is I have an undergraduate degree in English from UC Berkeley, and I had planned to go into publishing because I am a huge reader. And then I took a part-time job at a two-man law firm, and I thought it was so interesting that I decided to go to law school. So after I graduated from college, I worked as a paralegal in a really big law firm. And then I went to law school at Lewis and Clark in Portland because what I wanted to specialize in was environmental law. And that is one of the number one environmental law schools in the country. And so I loved that. Education was so interesting, and there's so many facets of environmental law that I really loved. So I wanted to stay in Portland, but Portland is a really awesome place. And so lots of people were moving to Portland. This is in 1996. Lots of people were moving to Portland. And so I just couldn't get the kind of job that I wanted there. So because what I really wanted to do was work for an environmental nonprofit, because I wanted to be an environmental good guy. So I got a job in South Lake Tahoe, working with the Sierra Nevada Alliance. And it wasn't a legal position, it was the policy director. And so I thought that was perfect. And then, so I did that for a year, and that organization is still an organization here in South Lake Tahoe. It's a regional, it's like an umbrella organization for regional nonprofit groups. And I loved that job. And what I found that I loved about it, which is so I've already done some meandering in my career path that I thought I was going to have. Then what I realized I loved is nonprofit management. So I didn't really like the policy development. I definitely didn't really like the legal aspect of it. What I really liked was the business aspect of it. So I ended up becoming the associate executive director of that organization, and running that organization. And after that, it's the last thing I'll say on this one question you've only asked me. Then I decided I'd go further on this nonprofit management path, and I became the managing director of the California Rangeland Trust, which is a statewide land trust that protects working landscapes. So it was not only a different group of people, because the California Rangeland Trust grew out of the California Cattlemen's Association. So the board is made up of ranchers across the state. So it was a very different group of people that I'd never worked with. But at Sierra Nevada Alliance, we worked hard to form a bridge to collaborate with other organizations who were not like ours. So I had met all these cool people. And then so I took that job, and that was my favorite job I've ever had. I loved nonprofit management. I loved this group of people who was really on the ground working to protect this landscape that they loved in a really unique way. And then I had my two daughters, and I stopped working full-time for 16 years.
Thanks for sharing. So I want to jump back a little bit to the Mayor Pro Tem piece. Talk to us a little bit about what that's like day to day. What kind of training or education do you need to get into a position like that? And what do you do?
Well, it's funny. So all of that I just said really has led me to where I am today, because while to be a city council member, you don't need anything other than people to vote for you. That's it. But in my mind, to be successful at it, I think that my legal background really helped me be kind of a big picture thinker who, and that's why I ran, because I thought that I would be good at being a city council member, to be kind of a big picture thinker and be able to understand, to be judicious about the decisions that you're making. How do they affect people? Who do they affect? And is it the effect that you actually want to have happen in your community? So the reason that I ran for city council was I thought that I had the skill set to make those things happen. And because I really care about my community, I'm not going to go hire an elected office. That is not important to me. The important thing to me is to make this community, South Lake Tahoe, the best that it can be. So day to day, it's totally random. It's completely random. So yesterday, well, I'll give you 2 examples. Well, actually, I'll start at the beginning. So we have city council meetings that can be anywhere from 3 hours to 10 hours, basically every other Tuesday. We, with the city manager and the city attorney, we put the agenda together, and we know sort of like, we have an agenda planning calendar that goes out quite far. So we kind of know generally what's going to be on it over the next year. But for example, our last city council meeting was 8 hours long, and it was because we had 3 really important but really long presentations. One of them was about what the city's role will be in broadband, because we have pretty good broadband, but it's not quite universal, and there are some equity issues and some speed issues. So what will the city's role be in broadband? Then we had another presentation that was super intense in terms of information content, that was transportation. What will the city's role be in transit? And then we had another one that was, what will the city's role be in the airport management going forward? So we had all this, and it kind of reminds me of being on a jury, if you've ever been on a jury, because you get hit with like all these facts and you have to really process them and think, okay, what is the best decision? Yeah, I think going forward, we wouldn't probably have 3 really information intense things on the agenda, because it was just a lot to go through. But my favorite part about being on city council is, I mean, I like that part because I like thinking and analyzing stuff. But my favorite part about being on city council is helping little problems. So when my neighbor comes to me and says, oh my gosh, there's something going on in the meadow, and I think it's an unhoused person, and what do we do? What do we do? You know, because it's, when you're just out here, you think, oh my gosh, like, I'm not sure who to call. I'm not sure what to do. So my very favorite part is directing the right resources to help the right situation.
All right, so you answered my next question, what you enjoyed most about it. So on the flip side of that, what has been the most challenging about this role, or what has surprised you about it?
Well, I think you already know the answer to that question, because I know that we've talked about it before. The most difficult thing about being an elected official is, as a public facing portion of our community, people are allowed to say to me whatever they want to say. And some of those things are not very kind. Mostly, I think that people simply don't know the facts. So rather than trying to understand the facts, it's easier just to lash out at somebody. And so we, as city council members, have put ourselves in the position of letting people say whatever they want. So for example, right before I logged on to meet with you, I was going through my emails, and one of them was a notification from Nextdoor. And so, you know, the social media. And so I looked on that, and the question was, what are the names of the city council members who voted for the single-use water bottle ban? Because I'm going to write them mean notes, was what it said. And then a couple of people wrote, well, we should all be drinking tap water in our reusable water bottles. What are you even talking about? But then a couple of people are like, yeah, get them off. So it's a lot of that issue in particular, I feel super comfortable with the decision that city council made. But sometimes it's still frustrating. I feel like I want to call every single one of those people and say, let's just talk about it. If you understood where I'm coming from rather than just being angry, I feel like we could make some bridges there. So I try to do that as much as possible, but it can be hard too. And so sometimes that obviously is the part about being out in the public that doesn't feel good.
All right. Wow. Yeah, I wouldn't do well with that. So you mentioned already some skills that are helpful in this position. So having a thick skin, and being able to sit in a chair for 8 hours during a meeting, and your legal skills, your legal background. Are there other skills or traits that you feel would be helpful for somebody who wanted to pursue this type of role?
I mean, I think that, I sort of focused on the negative. Thank you for saying the thick skin thing, but it's definitely, people often don't trust public officials because they think that they're in it for themselves. I don't know if you've seen the thing that happened in Los Angeles this week. Some Los Angeles city council members were recorded talking about how all they want is power, and there's power struggle, and theirs is a little different because they're voted in by district, whereas we are just all at large. But it was this whole thing about power. I want power, and you need power, and this thing. And I would argue that is absolutely the wrong place to come at any of this from. If you will be more successful if you come at this. I call this extreme volunteering. Oh, because I'll tell you about the salary. I call this extreme volunteering. So if you are somebody who enjoys volunteering at any level, that's an appropriate way to think about this role, because I didn't even know this when I ran for city council. But so we get a small, it's more than a stipend, but so we're considered city employees, which I didn't know. I thought that was pretty interesting. So our salary is $1,100 a month is how much we make. And that's not very much money. So you can't go into this for the money, which means you have to be motivated some other way. And I would also argue that everybody who I am on the council with now, so there's 5 of us, I'm one of the 5, everyone is completely there for the right reason. It's really about helping our community as a whole, helping the individuals in our community. And so this seat does give you a good platform for both of those things.
Thank you. So if you were to give advice to somebody who wanted to pursue your role, you've given some tidbits already, but is there any advice that you would give to a student who might want to pursue public office?
I'm glad you asked. Totally, because, well, actually, let me just step back. Let me answer a little foundational part first, which is I recently went to the California League of Cities conference, and that's a statewide conference in which a whole bunch of cities of every size meet and talk about their issues and what they're going through, which was super interesting because you realize that every city at every size in every part of our state, I'm sure in every state, has really similar issues. You have to balance the budget. You have to fix the roads. You have to think about your unhoused people. You have to think about your business community. So that was great just to share those kind of things. The most inspiring panel that I went to was a council member in Sacramento talked about how Sacramento has worked hard to create a youth-friendly city, and what that meant. And this is something that I hope to work on more here in our community, is bringing in students and the next generation of leadership in more to our municipal workings. So for example, I don't know if you already know this, the superintendent of the school district here created a thing called the Superintendent Student Council. And what that is I don't remember how many members there are, but a whole bunch of liaisons between the school district and other entities. So for example, college, and that actually was my daughter Darby. And so she met with the college president to talk about what linkages there are. And so we have a city council liaison, and he comes to city council. He's a senior now. He comes to city council and he presents once a month, and he tells us what his students think, his classmates think about what we're doing. and then he gives us feedback, and then he gives us ideas for other things that we can do. And I love that, and I really want to promote that, because we need to be focusing on the next generation of leaders, and that's the students, in the high school and at the community college. So my advice would be, if it's something that interests you to be in city government at a paid level, at the city manager, or at a director level, or to move into office, is to get started as soon as you can. And even if it seems weird and scary, to go for it, because if you don't go for it, you'll never know.
Awesome advice. And last two questions. If you were to go back and do it all over again, would you take the same path? Not about regret, just about if you would adjust anything.
That is a good one. I don't think so. I this weekend went to my 35th high school reunion. And so that definitely has been on my mind. And one of the conversations that we were all having was, do you feel like you are the person you were meant to be and in the right place, that we anticipated when we were 18? And most people said yes. And I definitely feel that. I am surprised that I'm here. Not at this place in my life, but sometimes I always pictured that I live in a city, and I don't. But I feel that I am the person I'm supposed to be, and I'm in the place I'm supposed to be. Sometimes I think, well, it was between law school and public policy school, because there's some interesting public policy schools. But ultimately, this is a piece of advice. Ultimately, I think that having a law degree, people understand what that is more than they understand what a public policy degree is. So I'm happy with my choice. I don't think I would change my path. I think it got me where I'm supposed to be.
Awesome. And a related question, you mentioned your 18-year-old self. Is there anything that you would tell your 18-year-old self? What's something you wish you would have known when you were that age, starting out?
This is kind of a dopey one, but I remember how much I used to think about what I was going to wear. Like, oh my gosh, I'm going to this thing, and what am I going to wear? And people are going to look at me. But then I realized two things. The first one is, every single person who's going to wherever you're going, they're thinking that same thing about themselves. Yep. So actually, nobody notices what you wear, because they're only thinking about what they're wearing.
Yep.
So that's one. And I guess, that, goes to how you want to present yourself, right? You always want to present yourself in the best light. And I would say to that, be confident in who you are and be true to yourself. That's something that I've tried always to do. And that's something that I talk about with my daughters a lot, is if you know who you are and you can show that to other people, then that's going to make them feel at ease too, because they're going to say, oh, you're not trying to be a weird show off or anything. You're just being yourself. And I get that. Mm-hmm. And I think that is the other thing that's served me well in moving forward in this, is that people can say, oh, I know her. She's a regular person. She's exactly the same, meeting me at the coffee shop as she is sitting on the dais, as she is anywhere. And that's something that I just can only be who I am.
Such good advice. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences. Hopefully lots of students watch this, and maybe some will reach out to you.
That would be great. I mean, that's definitely part of being the role that I'm in, is people can always reach out to me.
All right. Thanks, Cristi.
Yep. See ya.